So, very recently, different people have been sending me information about Giriraj Swami, Glenn Teton, who is an ISKCON guru, and they are saying Giriraj Swami is currently engaged in some very bizarre behavior. Now, these are allegations. I can't 100% say any of this is factual, but this is what people in his orbit have been saying. So we're just going to go with what they have told me. Now, keep in mind that Giriraj Swami is supposed to be God's pure devotee. He's supposed to be a Diksha Guru, which means he can absorb sins like Jesus. And he is getting direct dictation from God. So what he is saying is being spoken to him by God directly, and he is an empowered acharya, which means he's like a messiah. He's like a person who is purely in touch with God, which raises the question, how could a person who's purely in touch with God be doing bizarre and deviant things? It doesn't make a lot of sense, but this happens on a regular basis with the quote-unquote ISKCON gurus. They engage in a lot of different crazy things, and then all kinds of rationalizations begin to flow forward from the ISKCON management. Well, he was deviating, but that's not really his actual nature. He's really a pure person. This is an illusory person that you're seeing. The real Giriraj is serving Krishna purely somewhere. And that's what they said about Jayatirtha way back in 1980. Well, the Jayatirtha who's having sex and taking drugs is the Maya Jayatirtha. The real Jayatirtha is a pure devotee, so don't worry about these things. So, unfortunately, these types of rationalizations keep cropping up, but I would like to read the posting that was made on the Giriraj Swami site to kind of give a background for this whole situation. And it is from the Giriraj Swami care team, and it is subject response to recent allegations against Giriraj Swami. We are aware of the recent video that has circulated online containing serious allegations about Giriraj Swami regarding an inappropriate relationship with Mirabai Dasi. It is essential that we provide some context to the allegations in the video regarding Giriraj Swami's current health condition. Giriraj Swami has been diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia, a progressive neurological condition that affects his cognitive functions, including decision-making, emotional regulation, and social behavior. This diagnosis significantly impairs his ability to control his actions and feelings, leading to behaviors that are inconsistent with his character and values. We want to emphasize that the actions depicted in the video are not a reflection of Giriraj Swami's true self, but rather the result of a debilitating condition that has altered his behavior. Our primary concern is that Giriraj Swami's well-being, and we urge everyone to approach the situation with understanding and compassion. We ask for privacy and respect during this challenging time for Giriraj Swami. We appreciate your understanding as we navigate this sensitive matter, and we urge the community to support him with kindness and empathy. For further inquiries, please contact Giriraj Swami's care team. Thank you for your understanding to this important matter. Now, if we look at the Mirabai Dasi video, she says her and Giriraj Swami were having an amorous affair, which she says entailed sex and also virtual internet sex. And he was sending her messages all the time that he loves her and he wants to be with her forever and all kinds of things like that. This is what she is alleging on her video, that Giriraj Swami has amorous feelings for her. Now, if you notice, the Giriraj Swami team, care team, they're not really denying that this has been going on. They don't say, well, this didn't happen. So it's fairly evident that this did happen. He was having an inappropriate connection with this lady, and they're saying it's just because he's having this physical breakdown. But we don't find any example of any previous pure devotees who were having a mental breakdown in the end of their life and they started chasing women around. That just doesn't happen with pure devotees. I mean, another example is Prabhu Vishnu, also quite elderly man who got married recently. So he's a pure devotee, he's very elderly, and he is chasing skirts around in his elderly situation. Giriraj is also, I don't know, around my age. And people like me are getting floods of ads in my email box for Viagra and, other enhancement products to, let's say, get me up and going. So, in other words, people my age normally have a reduced amount of lusty desires. It's just a natural part of being elderly. You just don't think of yourself running off with a young woman, having sex, having babies, and all that entails. You're just not that interested in that type of thing. Never mind, starting a brand new relationship with a woman at this age. And that means, starting a whole new life when you're at death's door. That's not normal. How many people want to do that? So it never occurs to me that I should run off with a woman right now and start having an affair with some woman. It's just, but I'm not alone in this. Most of the people my age who are just ordinary people, ordinary mundane people, are not chasing skirts at this age. So it's not normal, even for normal people. Never mind, it is not normal for a pure devotee, a person who is fully in contact with the Supreme God. This just doesn't make any sense. A person who's in connection with God would have 0% desires for any kind of mundane relationships. It just does not happen among pure devotees and people who are connected to God. Now, according to this lady, Mirabai Dasi, there's actually nothing wrong with Giriraj Swami at all. It's just that he's in love. That's all. He's in love. He's not going crazy. He doesn't have any dementia. He just wants to be with his female companion and be happy. And unfortunately, his caretakers are blocking his phone and stopping her from messaging Giriraj Swami, and they've taken control of his life. And because of that, he looks very sad now, because he was very happy when they were exchanging all of these love messages, and his caretakers are just mean, nasty people. Okay, what this looks like to someone like myself is that this is just a cover-up. Giriraj Swami is going off the rails. He's deteriorating mentally, possibly, or this is just his natural state. He's just had all these problems for all this time. He has unresolved sex desires, and that's what this Mirabai lady says. The Giriraj told her that he had always wanted to be married. So his whole renounced life was just artificial the whole time. That's what she is saying, and I think that makes a lot of sense. These guys, are chasing women in their elderly state. They should have had this resolved a long time ago, just like myself. I got married, I had kids, and now I'm not thinking, oh, I need to find a woman all of a sudden. It just doesn't really happen for myself, because I've fortunately my own children and had that desire fulfilled. So they had these unresolved desires because the whole thing that they were doing the whole time was artificial. And now his caretakers, quote unquote, are trying to cover this up. But this happens all the time in ISKCON. We have these gurus living in private residences. They're not living in the temples. They have little private entourage of people around them who cover up this, that, and the other, and don't allow people to understand the real difficulties that they're having with their quote-unquote pure devotee guru. And Satsarup is another example of that. He was having an affair with some woman. Supposedly his caretakers knew about that, but they covered it up. They didn't want anybody to know about that. And the whole thing was just done in a private situation for quite a long time, but eventually it exploded out and people found out about it. Jayatirtha, same thing. He was having an affair, and his inner circle of managers wanted to cover it up. They were upset that I was complaining about it. Hansaduta having sex with a number of followers, maybe a dozen, and one of the husbands was going to go shoot Hansaduta, and I had to restrain this guy. Hansaduta was having sex with this guy's wife. I had to stop this guy from going to take out Hansaduta. Harikesh was having an affair with his therapist, and the list goes on and on and on with these quote-unquote pure devotees. So are they pure devotees? I don't think so. And not only that, I don't even think they have resolved their desires the same way that the ordinary mundane people are doing. The ordinary mundane people are not normally skirt chasing when they're 75 years old or something like that. They just have given up on chasing that propensity naturally, because Krishna arranges that. Krishna arranges that when you get older, your material desires wind down naturally. However, if you have artificially suppressed those desires for a long time, then they may surface when you are older, because you were repressing those desires artificially for such a long time. Now, one of the people who sent me this information about Giriraj says that he caught Giriraj Swami masturbating to internet porn. Okay, but one of Giriraj Swami's co-gurus, named Gunagrahi Swami, was caught watching porn way back when we had VHS tapes. He had VHS porn tapes in his motorhome. So these quote-unquote pure devotees who are equal to Jesus and they can absorb sins and all that kind of stuff, they're also watching porn? I mean, what's going on? Now, whether Giriraj Swami was watching porn or not, we do know that some of the people in his quote-unquote guru circle have been watching porn, and Gunagrahi admitted he was watching porn. And then Gunagrahi was buried in a samadhi in the Holy Land of India. So what's going on with this group of people who are claiming to be God's successors? God's successors are, according to them, falling down into illicit sex with men, women, and children. They said gurus fall down in all kinds of debauchery and debased behaviors. That's what happens to gurus. Well, the guru is a representation of God. He's in contact with God. How is he falling down into all of these problems? And what kind of message is that sending to the general population? Yeah, we have people who are in contact with God and they are deviating left, right, and center. What's the problem? Well, the problem is you're misrepresenting who is God and who is a successor to God. You can't say God's successors are falling down left, right, and center. And in the ISKCON system, the people who were falling down left, right, and center then voted in more gurus. Okay, like Giriraj. Giriraj was voted in to the circle of gurus in ISKCON after it was already known that these guys were falling down and having problems. So how can people who are falling down vote in others as pure devotees? It doesn't even make any sense. A pure devotee would have to be certified by another pure devotee. He wouldn't be certified by people who are falling down. Now, one of the Giriraj defenders, her name is Krishna Premavati Devi Dasi, wrote to Mirabai Dasi, I know you for a while, and I know His Holiness Giriraj Swami. Please don't blow this out of proportion. This is not something that Maharaj would do in a sane frame of mind. Don't tarnish his lifetime of devotion to Srila Prabhupada. I do believe there's something neurologically wrong with him. And Mirabai responds, "Thank you so much, Mataji, Hare Krishna. His mind and memory were normal when we were together." And Krishna Premavati responds, "It may seem normal, and I know it must feel quite flattering to you. I am sorry that you got caught up in an episode of his illness coming out like it did." Well, this always is the excuse with these people. Well, they have an illness, they're having a mental breakdown, Hansaduta was taking Percodons, he was drinking vodka. Well, that's because he took too many sins from too many people, so we have to medicate him now. None of this is his fault. This is all happening because he tried so hard to serve Krishna, and he took your sins. Now he's suffering from you giving him your sins. It's your fault he's having all these problems. So I've heard all these rationalizations like endlessly going on with these people. But none of this ever happens with actual pure devotees. They don't have a neurological breakdown where they start chasing skirts when they're as old as the hills. And they're as old as me. Now again, I'm not free of lust, anger, and greed by any means. But I have to say, it has been reduced substantially because I'm just wiped out. That's what happens when you're old. You get wiped out and your desires just go, It just, you just have to struggle to get yourself out of bed in the morning. That's how life is when you're my age. So, do I think I should get up and start chasing skirts? No, it doesn't happen. So Krishna has helped me out, and he helps out anybody who has normal life and normal desires. So now this poor lady, Mirabai Dasi, she has the normal desires of a normal woman. She wants to have a man, and that means she wants to have a family, and she wants to have kids, and she wants to have an apartment or a house, all that stuff. And those are all normal desires for a female. But now she's got all of her desires mixed up and entangled with this Giriraj fellow, which means her desires will never be fulfilled, which means he has misled this lady and caused her all kinds of problems. He's taken her natural desire to have a man, to have a family, to have a house, to have all that stuff, which is normal and healthy for a female. Nothing wrong with that. But when it is directed to these, what I would call creepy ISKCON gurus, let's just say, it is misdirecting and it is cheating these women, and it is disturbing and destroying their lives. It's causing mayhem for these poor women. The women should have their desires focused properly on a person who can fulfill those desires properly, and not on some flaky Jake bogus Jesus who thinks he's the Messiah and all the rest of it. This is really causing trouble. And this also happened to the female that got involved with Hansaduta. Her whole situation was turned topsy-turvy. He ordered her to leave her husband and marry him, and then they had a whole bunch of kids, and then Hansaduta was just going more and more crazy, let's just say. But that's the problem. How do gurus who are connected to God go crazy? And then she had to leave Hansaduta. So this is cheating, and this is misdirecting people's emotions, spiritually and materially. And it's just causing havoc for all kinds of what I would call victims of their system. And it never ends. They just keep going on and on and on. Even when they're old, you'd think it's going to end, but it doesn't end. They just keep going on and on and on. And now all of his caretakers are ordering him to cut off connection to this woman, which is causing her a lot of distress because the whole thing was artificial the whole time, and Giriraj misdirected this. But I think the caretakers also allowed this misdirection to go on. They must have known about this for some time, and they didn't put a lid on it right away. But the caretakers are obviously also victims because they think, oh, Giriraj is a pure devotee, and he's a great saint, and he's just having problems, chasing skirts now, which is normal and something that happens with pure devotees. And so they're trying to explain it away now. No, their moral compass has been disturbed. So anyway, Giriraj Swami has been part of this whole ISKCON system of teaching the citizens of ISKCON that God's successors are often falling into illicit sex with men, women, and children. They're going crazy, and then they're chasing women, and that's what happens with God's successors. And a friend of mine who's a lawyer says he believes this is criminal to teach children that God's successors are often debauchees is giving children a bad idea of what is God's successor, and it is corrupting the morals of minors, which he believes is illegal. You can't be training children that God's successors are often debauchees. That will destroy the moral compass of children. But that's been going on the whole time with Giriraj's program. They've been telling children, yes, these are God's successors. Yes, they're falling down into illicit sex with men, women, and children because that is what happens with God's successors, and that is creating a moral catastrophe for the children being trained up in that system. So it's victimizing those children. Never mind, a number of those children were actually sexually violated, and oftentimes they had problems with homosexual pedophiles creating havoc in the schools of these children. And all this was going on under Giriraj's watch. He was one of the managers of ISKCON while all this stuff has been going on, which is why we had to have ISKCON sued for $400 million, because mass child molesting was going on. But mass child molesting would be the natural result of worshiping debauchees. That is one of the byproducts of all of this stuff. So this poor woman is a victim, the ISKCON children are victims, and the whole ISKCON society is a victim because the whole society has been devastated by all of this cheating and false representation of what is a pure devotee. Now, some of the leaders of ISKCON from India, they call themselves the ICC, they wrote to tell me the reason I don't understand all this stuff, you mean, for example, that gurus are often falling into illicit sex, I don't understand this because I'm a Western malecha, a low-born person. Well, yeah, I am a malecha, a low-born person. But that was a blessing for me because when I grew up, in my society, which is the Christian society, we were trained to fear God. You got to fear God because you can't slap down God. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. You can't just walk around and say, oh yeah, debauchees are God's successors. No, God isn't going to accept that, all right? And you better fear the reaction of saying things like that. You can't just walk around and insult God by saying his successors are debauchees. You got to have some fear for God, because if you don't fear God and you try to challenge God, well, God can just snap his fingers and make you a little bug in a cesspool somewhere, swimming around in a cesspool. That's where you're going to be if you think you're able to challenge God. You won't be able to. This is called illusion. We cannot challenge God's authority. It does not work. And the reaction is very severe. Now, according to the Vedic scriptures, the people who imitate God's pure devotees are destined for the most obnoxious regions of the universe. That means they fall down, they become bugs in a cesspool, things like that. That's what will happen to those people who think they can misrepresent God and misrepresent God's successors. You're not allowed to do that. It's just not done. And most, even normal people know that. You won't find normal people walking down the street saying, oh yeah, God's successors are engaged in illicit sex with men, women, and children. They would never say that. the normal Joe person walking down the street, because they understand this is a severe offense to God and to God's successors. So worse than insulting God is insulting God's successor. So you shouldn't compare God's successors to fallen people, because God is the same. Sakshat Hari, he is the same as his successor. So if his successor is fallen, then God is fallen, and we shouldn't be saying that. So, do I believe that Giriraj Swami is actually going bonkers and he's losing his mind? Well, yeah, I do believe that. I mean, maybe his caretakers are right. He's losing his mind. But he's losing his mind because he has made severe offenses to God. And this is one of the punishments that happens to people who misuse their intelligence. They lose their intelligence. And this is called buddhi nasha. It means you lose your intelligence. Your intelligence is destroyed. And this has happened to a number of these quote-unquote ISKCON successors to God. They have just gone insane. And Hansaduta, when he was arrested and went to court after he was shooting at occupied buildings in Berkeley, he went into court and said, well, I just went insane. That's what happened. Well, yeah, you did go insane. But the reason you went insane is that you violated the orders of God. That's why you and your cohorts are going insane. It is a punishment. Going insane is a punishment. And they don't realize that. And the caretakers should not be trying to prop all this up as normal for pure devotees, because they're implicated and making it look like pure devotees have all of these problems, which they never do. We never find pure devotees chasing skirts when they're at death's door. And I'm one of those people myself. I am at death's door. I'm not going to run out of my door right now and start chasing skirts when I'm at death's door. Because it's just, I have enough common sense, God-given sense. Don't do that. It's a futile endeavor. You're not going to start a new life when you're ending this life. But anyway, Giriraj doesn't know that because he has lost his intelligence. And that means he's being punished by God. So we shouldn't justify that and aid and abet that and cover that up. We should just admit he is an offender, and now he's suffering the results. So to sum up here, Giriraj Swami's program has been banning, beating, molesting, suing, and killing Vaishnavas ever since 1978, and he is a participant in that program. He has caused immense suffering to thousands and thousands of Vaishnavas, including probably thousands of children. They had to suffer horribly just so he could sit in a big house somewhere and sit on a big seat and have people offer puja to him. And Sulochan said they are standing on a pile of skulls of their godbrothers and all of the children of ISKCON. And that means they only got to their position by pushing down everyone else. And that is very, very, very sinful. And Giriraj is just beginning to taste some of the reactions, just like his pal Jayapataka Swami is suffering horribly now. And they're all going to ultimately suffer because what they're doing is very sinful. I hope this helps. Hari Bol.